Welcome to Voice Theater's live stream reading of Thornton Wilder's Our Town, Act Two. Welcome back, everybody. We have actors who are in New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, and the Hudson Valley. And if for some reason one of our actors' internet connection gets weak, you'll hear another actor's voice who will cover until the connection gets better. And if you guys have the possibility to view this in speaker view, that would be great. If not, enjoy it in gallery view. And lastly, all of us at Voice Theater look forward to when we can spend time with all of you live in the theater. And now, please enjoy Act Two of Our Town.
Years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already, and a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed that they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountain got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married, you know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this. I reckon you can guess what that's about. So, it's 3 years later, it's 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. Soon as they've passed their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like they suddenly fed themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs's garden and Mrs. Webb's garden here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines drenched. All yesterday over there on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. It may begin any minute. There, you can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And there's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webbs coming down to make breakfast, just as though it were an ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that these ladies they see before them, both of these ladies cook 3 meals a day, one of them for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets said, you've got to love life to have life, and you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Giddy up, Bessie. Come on. All right. Come on now. Get up, Bessie.
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk. And there's Cy Crowell delivering the papers like his brother before him.
Oh, morning, Howie.
Oh, morning, Si. Anything in the paper that I should know?
Not much. Except we're losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corner has ever had. George Gibbs.
Yeah, I reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yeah, he's a mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie. I guess I can sit and have a conversation if I have a mind to.
I don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married.
Mhm.
Would you, Howie?
Oh, I can't tell, Si. Never had no talent that way. Oh, you're up early, Bill.
Well, seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Well, Si Crowell here is all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Si. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name Hank Todd. Went down to Maine, became a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Oh, I don't think bad. I think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think
Good
it's going to rain again?
Good morning, Mrs. Gibbs. You know, it rained so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
I certainly hope it will.
How much do you want today?
Oh, well, I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
Hey, my wife wanted me to tell you that we both hope that they will be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. I know they will.
Thank you a lot, Howie. I'll tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Oh, yeah, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Good morning, Mrs. Webb.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Oh, yes. Yes, and the 2 of cream.
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
I was just talking to Miss Gibbs, saying how it might lighten up. Yeah, Miss Newsom told me to tell you that how we hope that they will both be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you. And thank Mrs. Newsom, and we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, Mrs. Webb. We hope to get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, "I do" to the mirror, but it don't sound convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it that he got warm things to wear. Frank, they're too young. Really, I don't. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch a death of a cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, now don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd made a mistake for sure. And when I saw you coming down the aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. The only trouble was, I'd never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church marrying a perfect stranger.
And how do you think I felt, Frank? Weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I made you something.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
Ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing so terrifying in the world as a son. The relation of a father and a son is the darndest, awkwardest.
Yeah, well, mother and daughter ain't no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have a lot of troubles, I suppose, but that's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yep, people are meant to go through life 2 by 2. It ain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, you know one of the things I was scared of when I married you?
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have material for conversation more than last us a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Tain't very choice, but I always find something to say. Ah, did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No, only day of the year Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody else's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I get the impression she's been crying.
Oh, Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca! Come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you got to put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't go out this house without you're prepared for it.
All right. Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch your death of a cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. While you're in my house, you're going to live simply, wisely. Thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mrs. Webb.
Oh, goodness. You frightened me. Now, George, you can come in a minute, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
George, you know as well as I do, the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
Well, there's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
Well, no wonder. We were up till all hours, sewing and packing.
Ugh.
Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee. And I'll go upstairs and see she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Oh, George, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes and one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yeah. Yes, I never thought of that.
Yeah. Girl's apt to be a mite nervous on her wedding day. No?
I wish a fella could get married with all that marching up and down.
Oh, every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George, but it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, the women have it all their own. Man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that the knot is tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Yes, don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage, it's a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. Don't you forget that, George.
No, sir, Mr. Webb. How old were you when you first got married?
Well, you see, I'd been to college and taken a little time to get settled, but Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. And age hasn't that much to do with it, George, not compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Well, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice that my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early, showing who's the boss, he said. Best thing you can do is give an order, and if it don't make sense, doesn't matter, just so she'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, or a conversation or anything, you just get up and leave the house. That'll make it clear to her. And, oh, yes, he said, never, ever let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I have been happy ever since. Let that be a lesson to you, George. Never to ask advice on personal matters. George, you gonna raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you gonna raise chickens on your farm?
Uncle Luke's never been much interested, but I thought.
Book came in my office the other day, George, and the philo system of raising chickens. And I want you to read it. I'm thinking of beginning in a small way in the backyard, and I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two'd be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with them.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that other superstition?
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bridegroom should ever see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding or near it. Now remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began, this wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22 and you make some decisions, then whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years and that white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do it, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young, and particularly in the days when you were first in love, when you were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? Now they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class. And as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yep, there they are, coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine. Ernestine! Can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that Cicero the worst thing? Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me a minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice anyway and give Herb some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, Why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you ask me, I might as well say it outright, George. Goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What is it?
I don't like this whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell you the truth and shame the devil.
The change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot, and I used to watch you as you did everything because we've been friends for so long. And then you began spending all your time at baseball, and you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore. Not even to your own family, you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You've got awful conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so. They might not say it to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say that because I have to agree with them a little. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry that I said it.
I'm glad you said it, Emily. I never thought that such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella to not have faults creep into his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, well, I don't think that's possible to be perfect, Emily.
My father is, and as far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right out that I am not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man because we girls are more nervous. No, I'm sorry that I said all of that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily,
No, now that I can see it, it's not true at all, and I can suddenly feel that it's not important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Well, thank you. I would.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What'll you have? Why, Emily Webb? What you been crying about?
Oh, she
I just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. I almost got run over at the hardware store wagon.
Oh,
Everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
well, now you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you've got to look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What'll you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, no, Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are 125 horses in Grover's Corners. This minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. The best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I can remember when a dog could go to sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and nothing come along to disturb him. There they are. Enjoy them.
They are so expensive.
No, no, don't you think of that. We're celebrating our election. And then, do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true. You're perfect.
No, Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you'll see, I'm going to change so quick, you bet I'm going to change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agriculture College next year, will you write me a letter once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away 3 years, you get out of touch with things. maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school to be a good farmer.
Why, George,
Yeah, and some say that it's even a waste of time. You can get all those things anyway out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start in taking over his farm tomorrow, if I could.
my.
And like you say, being gone all that time in other places and meeting other people, gosh, anything like that can happen. I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. I'll bet they almost never are. Emily, I feel that you're as good a friend as I've got, and I don't need to go and meet the people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all about that cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that. That fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it. And that was when you said that for a year I wasn't noticing people. And you, for instance, while you say you were watching me when I did everything, I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought about you as one of the chief people I thought about. I always made sure when you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always got in the way. Yesterday, I was standing over against the wall waiting for you, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny. How could I have known that? Why, I thought that you...
Listen, Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agriculture school. I think that once you found a person that you're very fond of, I mean, a person who's fond of you too and likes you enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's just as important as college is, and even more so. That's what I think.
I think it's awfully important too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
Emily, if I do improve and make a big change, would you be, could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
So I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes. Yes.
Wait just a minute and I'll walk you home with Mr. Morgan. I'll have to go home and get the money to pay you for this. It'll only take a minute.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I had reasons, Mr. Morgan. Look, here's my gold watch to keep until I come back with the money.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. Got all over your shock, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't get them all into one wedding, naturally, and especially not into a wedding at Grover's Corners where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds. And well, we thought that ought to be in our play too. The real hero of this scene isn't even on stage at all. You know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. And that's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding, the ancestors, millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. 'Twa'n't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And now she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful, and she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it, you know. There's something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope some of her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong, that's what's the matter. There they come.
Hey, George! George! That's yow! Ooh, look at him, fellas. Looks scared to death, huh? Yow! Hey, George!
George, don't look so innocent, you old geezer.
Woo-hoo-hoo! We know what you're thinking. Don't disgrace the team, big boy. Woo-hoo!
There used to be an awful lot of that kind of thing at weddings in the old days, Rome and later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
What's the matter? George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it.
No, listen, Ma.
Now, no, George, you're a man now.
Listen, Ma, for the last time, I ask you, all I want to do is be a fella.
George, if anyone should hear you, now stop. Why, I'm ashamed of you.
What? Where's Emily?
Oh, George, you gave me quite a turn.
Cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Now, Ma, you save Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over every Thursday night. You'll see, Ma. What are you crying for? Come on. We've got to get ready for this.
I never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there looking so... Oh, no, I hate him.
Emily.
I wish I were dead.
Emily,
Oh, Papa.
don't get upset.
Oh, Papa, I don't want to get married.
Emily, everything is all right.
Can I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
No, Emily, now stop and think for a minute.
Oh, you remember what you used to say all the time? You used to say it all the time, that I was your girl. There must be a lot of places that we could go. I'll work for you. I could keep house.
Shh, you mustn't think of such things. You're just nervous, Emily. George, will you come over here a minute? You're marrying the best young man in the world. George is a fine fella.
Papa.
I am giving away my daughter, George. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to. I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you. Emily, I need you.
Well, if you love me, help me. All I want is someone to love me.
I will, Emily. Emily, I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear? Forever and ever.
Okay. They're waiting for us. Now, you know it'll be all right. Come, quick.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife, to have?
Oh, a perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
Do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband?
Oh, I don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy. Don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Oh, aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I have never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars in town yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop, lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are, up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And way up, if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock, right here. And all these towns that lie around it, Jaffrey and East Jaffrey and Peterborough and Dublin, and there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Oh, yes, beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn and Brooklyn when they might pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over there are the old stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people that came a long way to be independent. Summer people walk around there laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. It don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city folk people for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Whenever you come near the human race, there's layers and layers of nonsense. Over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves, New Hampshire boys. Had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together. though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, Friends of the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. And let me see, here's Mr. Stimson, organist at the Congregational Church, and Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so. You remember? Oh, and a lot of others. And Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst while he was on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Knock. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. We all know how it is. And then time and sunny days and rainy days and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place. And we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal, and it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions they had and the pleasures they had and the things they suffered and the people they loved. They get weaned away from earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming, something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part in them to come out clear? Some of the things they're going to say maybe will hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new made grave. And here comes a Grover Corners boy that left town to go out west.
Oh, good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes, alive. Of all people, I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Oh, yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business now in Buffalo, Joe. But I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death, and I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well?
Yes. Can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Samuel.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today.
Old Farmer McCarty right here. I used to do chores for him when I was in high school. He had the little Nico.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Well, this is my Aunt Julia. Oh, I'd forgotten that she'd, of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 3 years ago now, about this time. And today's another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Most of the Brevs pick a verse.
Well, that doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those Hersey sisters left now. Let me see. Where are... I wanted to see about my mother and my father.
Yes, over there with the Craigs. Avenue F.
Oh, he was organist at church, wasn't he? He drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it, but he'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own telepathy. You could see it there. It ain't a verse exactly.
Well, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? She had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old.
So the grave's gonna be over there?
Yes, there ain't much more room over here amongst these Gibbses. So they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. Yo, excuse me, I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful?
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Oh, wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girl ever graduated from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Oh, perfectly beautiful farm. It's on the same road we lived on.
Yep. A right smart farm.
Hello.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Ms. Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
Hello. It's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
Seems thousands and thousands of years since I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just about the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and a great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought it out of that money you left us.
I did?
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us, why, it was just over $350.
Oh, yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. Oh, it's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Life people don't understand, do they?
No, Emily, not very much.
they're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. Oh, my boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes. He loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford too. It never gives us any trouble. I don't drive though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away of being one of them? How long does it?
Dear, just wait and be patient.
I know. Look, they're finished. They're going. Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark life persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night, that's all they are. Troubled.
Little cooler than it was.
Yes, that rain's cooled off a little.
Those northeast winds, they always do the same thing, don't they?
If it isn't a rain, it's a 3-day blow.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again into living. I feel it, I know it. Why, just for a moment, I was thinking about the farm, and just for a minute, I was there, and my baby was on my lap, and as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
Oh, but it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
Some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy day. I'll choose the day that I first knew that I loved George. Why would that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget about all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I forget that life? It's all I know. It's all that I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
It can't be since I was married or since the baby was born. Well, I can choose a birthday at least, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right, February 11th, 1899, a Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they had begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's Main Street. Why, that's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
That's the town that I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I had forgotten that. Oh, I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Who's she?
And you remember your father had been away for several days. He came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York at Clinton.
Look. There's Howie Newsom. There's our policeman.
Whoa,
But
Bessie.
he's dead. He died.
Bessie. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howie.
You're up early.
Oh, been rescuing a party. Darn near froze to death down by Polish Town there. Got drunk and laid out in the snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Good morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsom. Oof, it's cold.
10 below by my barn, Mrs. Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it for you special on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes. Yes.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early?
Yes, just been back to my old college in New York State. Yeah. In any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
Oh, we'll have to get that in the paper.
Nah, it won't much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How did it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes. Can't think of anything that's happened special. Been right cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over to his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Papers have any mistakes in it?
Nope, none that I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Charles, don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Yes, I got something. Right here. Where's my girl? Where is my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. It's 7 o'clock. Now, I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're too young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown. I love you all, everything. I can't look at you and everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There are some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Mama, you shouldn't have.
But
I can't.
birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. And I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. He must have come over here in the cold pretty early. Right, nice of him.
George, I had forgotten that.
Okay, chew that bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Just look at me as if you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead too. Mama, his appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We just felt terrible about it, don't you remember? Just for a moment. We're all together, Mama. Just for a moment. We're happy. Let's just look at one another.
That in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it.
And this is from you. Why, Mama, it's just lovely. It's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hoped you'd like it. I hunted all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Well, Wally has something for you too. He made it at manual training class and he's very proud of it. Be sure you make a big fuss about it. Your father has a surprise for you too. Don't know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl? Huh?
I can't go on. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all that was going on and we never noticed. Take me back up the hill to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama, Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee and new ironed dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you. Do human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No. The saints, poets, maybe they do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are. Just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes, now you know. Now you know that's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance, to go up and down, trampling on the feelings of those about you, to spend and waste time as though you had a million years, to be always the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Now you know. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to, ignorance and blindness.
Simon Simpson, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, look at that star. I forgot its name.
My boy, Joel, he was a sailor. He knew them all. We'd sit here in the porch in the evenings and he'd just tell them all by name. Oh, wonderful.
Stars, mighty good company.
Yes, yes, 'tis.
Here's one of them coming.
That's funny. Ain't no time for one of them to be here. Goodness sakes.
Gibbs, it's George.
Shh, dear, just rest yourself.
It's George.
And my boy, Joel, the one that knew the stars, he used to say that it took millions of years for that little speck of light to get to the earth. I mean, a body could hardly believe it, but that's what he used to say millions of years.
Goodness. That ain't no way to behave. He ought to be at home.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily.
they don't understand, do they?
No, Emily, they don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by. And at the livery stable, somebody's setting up late and talking. Yes, it's clearing up. There are the stars doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think there are no living beings up there, just chalk or fire. Only this one is straining away all the time to make something of itself. The strain's so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You get a good rest too. Good night. Stay well and wash your hands. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for spending time with us this evening. And thanks to all the actors and our technical staff who donated their time and their energy and their hearts to work on this play. It's been a total joy, and we hope it has been for you as well. It looks like Voice Theater will have a new home base, and we're very excited about that. So if you want to help us make that a reality, you can donate to Voice Theater by going to our support page on voicetheater.org. We'll see you for the next live stream, and till then, stay safe, stay strong, and be healthy. Night, night.